I want to deliver just a real quick sensitivity warning. Crystal Starnes was sexually assaulted while she was on the job by a superior, and she's going to tell her story. And it's a story that is deeply emotional. It's a story that has the potential to trigger people who have gone through various forms of sexual assault or sexual harassment on the job or elsewhere. And so this is just simply a warning for those who are sensitive to this sort of thing. Welcome to the Mindful Mutiny Podcast. Mindful Mutiny is about people who thoughtfully rebel against the status quo and bravely pursue their highest potential. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast because it helps with growing. It helps with everything. So wherever you're listening to this, leave a review, leave a comment. It really helps. Today, welcome to Crystal Starnes.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Crystal, can you talk about Voice for Victims and the work that you're doing right now?
Yes, I created Voice for Victims because, as you said, that I suffered in silence and I sued my abuser. And I wanted to spread awareness to others so that they didn't suffer in silence like I did for years. So what I've been doing is I've been having, victims, survivors, mental health therapists, doctors, attorneys, various people on my podcast. And, I'm trying to spread awareness to as many people as possible. I want to help as many people as I can for the rest of my life because I suffered for years and I don't want to see anyone else suffer like I did. And I feel that, spreading awareness and educating the community is so important because when you educate, then, people know and they are aware of what their rights are.
Well, I know that your abuse, which we're going to get into in a moment, and it's just absolutely bone chilling. It happened in the judicial system, and you do victims' rights and so forth for lots of like corporations and in Hollywood and in different places. You educate a lot of different people. So what's kind of the scope of your work?
So basically, it's just podcasting. And, I go to different events. I've networked a lot and I've gotten connected to a lot of people in Hollywood. And, I'm just trying to spread awareness, for my for the podcast. But I'm also trying to help other people. Like I've gotten in contact with a lot of actors. And I mean, even actors have been sexually abused. I've had actors come on my platform and tell their story about how they were sexually abused in Hollywood. Some were raped as children. It's just, I don't know what the word is, but it's like God is like using me to help all these people. Even when they were going through the SAG stuff, they were on strike. I had actors reaching out to me, quietly and just asking what they can do and stuff. And I'm not saying that I'm the one that drove that, but what I'm saying is people reached out to me because they know that I stood up for something that was going on that was wrong, and a lot of them weren't getting treated correctly. So then obviously they went on strike and they did what they needed to do. But it's just I want to empower as many people out there and let them know that they do have a voice because for years I suffered, and the way, like I guess what I want to say is I was under like a dictatorship is the best word to describe it. The judge that I worked under, he was very controlling, and he told us that we were at will employees and basically he could fire us for anything. So all those years, I didn't think I could ever report him. I figured no one would believe me. And, I just remained silent. But then I ended up meeting somebody in another department, and she had filed some type of harassment at her agency, and she told me about the EEOC. So then I learned about the EEOC. So then I decided to file a complaint with the EEOC. Then I hired an attorney, and then, then everything played out after that. But if she would have never told me about EEOC, I probably would have continued working, remained silent, and just put up with everything I was going through.
So I imagine that you were a young lady and you were working in the judicial system in some capacity. Were you, did I remember that you were a probation officer?
Yes, I was a probation and parole officer. Yep.
Okay. And what occurred? What happened to you?
Well, when I first, do you want me to tell a little bit background of who I was, like where I worked before, or how do
Please.
you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I went to college right out of high school. I went to college for a criminology degree. I got a bachelor's degree in criminology, and then I eventually moved away to Ohio, and I got my first probation officer job out there. I did not know anyone. I got it solely on my own. And then I eventually wanted to get back home because I was homesick. I didn't like being that far away. So I finally got hired in Pittsburgh. I didn't know anybody down there. They hired me. I was a drug court officer in Ohio. So they wanted a drug court officer. So that's what I ended up getting hired down there. And then they put me in Wilkinsburg, and I was there for a year, and I kept trying to get into Butler County where I ended up at. And I finally met the judge at a Christmas party, and I gave him my information. He said there'd be some job openings coming up the following year, and he would be interested in hiring me because of my background and everything. It was all professional, everything was
Yeah.
fine. And then he started calling me. He called me for like a couple months, and I just kept making excuses, not to meet up with him and stuff. I just, because every time he would call, I had stuff going on because I was taking Taekwondo at the time, and it just seemed like every time he'd call me, I was, I'd just been done at Taekwondo, and I wasn't going to go for an interview if I'm, just got done taking Taekwondo. So, anyhow, eventually he called me on a day that I had an endoscopy done, and I had been under anesthesia that morning. And then, he called me in the afternoon, and he told me that he would like me to come in for an interview. Well, at the time, I wasn't thinking clearly. And, I just said, okay. So I ended up meeting him in there at his chambers at 9 o'clock at night. And then, it ended up turning sexual. He started hitting on me and everything. And then, everything, it's all in my, it's all in my lawsuit. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
but anyhow, that's what happened. And then after that, then in a couple months, I was told that I was gonna be hired. I interviewed for the position, and then I got hired. And then after that, he started continuously having me come up to his chambers, and trying to, it would turn sexual. He would try to, I just don't like talking about it, but I mean that's basically what happened. And it
Well,
just went on for years.
well,
So
and thank you for being willing to share even that much of it. And
mhm,
it sounds like just an absolutely clear, very classic case of the person with power to employ, the person with power to make rules, and certainly the person with power to affect your career.
mhm.
Being somebody who is also has this kind of sway over you where you're not exactly sure whether you're now also in the wrong because maybe you're the equal partner in all of this or what have you. So there's shame and there's guilt and there's questioning, particularly for a younger person who's dealing with somebody as powerful as a judge or say a corporate leader or somebody who is several levels up from where a person is. And so thank you for sharing that story. I'm sure that you, having gone through this, you have a lot of people that contact you and share their own stories. And are you seeing this sort of thing happening virtually in every single a profession that there is?
Yeah, I've seen it in various professions. And I just saw recently there was another case out there in Pennsylvania. Another probation officer just filed a lawsuit in our state, but hers isn't exactly like mine, but she was sexually harassed. So, I mean, more people are starting to come out, especially in the court system. And I really feel that because of me, standing up in Pennsylvania, because my case came out before Harvey Weinstein. It was like a week before Harvey Weinstein. My case came out, then Harvey Weinstein people came out, so it's like it was just everything played out. And I mean, I didn't even know those people at the time, but just seems like more people are starting to speak up.
Some of these stories are so shocking to me when I think about where people are in their career and the risk and disgusting decisions that they make. I was just talking to a physician, a female physician, and she was talking about being in her internship and her fellowship, and that her director of the department kept hitting on her. And when she talked about what this hitting on was, it wasn't just you look nice today, maybe a little creep vibes or something like that. It was like, you want to come to the orgy tonight? It's going to be at my house. And it's very, very vivid, very strong. And for somebody who is younger in their career, is trying to figure out where the opportunities are, of course, it's something that you're having to really think, how do I handle this? Now I know this thing. I don't want to be involved in this thing. Am I now out of various opportunities because I'm not interested in doing whatever it is that's happening? So are you, what is the trend that you see in the victims? Are they generally females, generally males, and where in their career do they tend to be?
Mostly females, but there's been males that I've interviewed, that have been victims. But I do see more females, and I think it's just, like you said before, it's a power thing. Like, it's a narcissistic personality, is what I believe he was. He was very, very controlling and jealous too. Very jealous. I mean, I just remember over the years, if I would be talking to another colleague, like I remember this one incident that there was a sheriff deputy that I was talking to in court, and he was sitting behind the bench and he was waving at me, trying to get my attention in the courtroom. Like, he was so bothered that I was talking to this sheriff deputy that he didn't want me to be talking to him anymore. And he always wanted to try to show his power over me, to always look at me certain ways, and other people picked up on it. And, it was just very uncomfortable. And I loved my job. I mean, I went to be a probation officer. That's what I wanted to do. And that's why I never spoke out, because I didn't want to lose my job. That was the whole reason why I was fearing it. And because of the way he would talk to us, he'd, basically say that, he could fire us for anything when he would come to staff meetings. So, but yeah.
Yeah.
I was young at the time when it happened. So,
Yeah. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Butler County, Pennsylvania, the same county I still live in a small town called Chicora, Chicora. So that's where I grew up, and I always wanted to work in that courthouse. That was like my dream. But unfortunately, I had to move away to get my first probation officer job. I had to get experience and then work my way back. Yeah. And that's another reason why I was upset that this happened, because, he could have taken advantage of anyone that, but me, I already had experience. Like, why would you take advantage of somebody that was moving up in their career? Like, I obviously put myself through school. I worked 2 other probation officer jobs, which I got all on my own. I knew nobody. And, I was a good officer. And then for somebody to still prey on me, it's sickening.
I'm sure that you spent a good deal of time in therapy dealing with the trauma of all of this.
Yes, I did. And I still do. I'm still in therapy. It's had long-term effects on me. So yeah. I have a good therapist. She's very nice. And,
what are these longer term effects that
I have like PTSD and anxiety from it. But I mean, that's another reason why I do the podcasting too, is because it's helping me, because I'm trying to turn a negative into a positive. Do you know what I mean? And like, if I feel like I'm making a difference in the community, it's making me feel like I have self-worth. Because as a probation officer, all those years I worked hard to be an officer, and, I had a lot of confidence in myself, and you know how it is. I mean, when you're professional and everything. And then, eventually I had to resign my position because it's just, the harassment was horrible out there after I filed my lawsuit. I mean, I had a lot of ostracism and just a lot of retaliation that happened to me in that office. And I eventually had to leave because it was affecting my health. My doctor said, you just got to go, because you're going to die if you continue. Because I was severely sick. And so then, go ahead.
This harassment, I'm really interested in this because this is the reason that so many people don't speak up. And it sounds like you went through a real severe ration of all of this. And these are all people that are colleagues of yours. These are people that are maybe friends of yours, and it sounds like a small community.
It is.
And,
Yes.
and so can you talk about what the harassment was and how you worked through it? Because victims out there right now that might be listening to this are that's a major fear of coming forward.
So a lot of it was they started nitpicking my work after I filed my lawsuit, trying to make it look like I was making mistakes. They would give me dirty looks. Some of them came up to me saying, why are you doing this? You're not going to win it. I did have some support from some people, but everybody feared it. That the way this community is in that building, at least how it was back when I worked there, people feared higher ups. It's very it's like a lot of nepotism, and it's a sickening, hostile environment. Is the best way to explain it.
Mm.
So, what I would do to get through it, I would keep my door shut, like as closed as I could, and I'd only have it open when I'd see defendants and different things. And I just pretty much try to keep to myself. That's what I tried to do to get through it. But it was very difficult. I did not want to continue working. My husband kept pushing me to continue and continue. And I finally, like when my doctor was like, you gotta get out of there. And I finally just like, I gotta leave. I just can't do it anymore. And I just finally resigned. I had enough of it, and it was the best decision I made. As soon as I got out of there, it was like a relief. It was like, oh my gosh, breath of fresh air. And looking back on it, yeah, we struggled a little bit, but you know what? God got us through it, and I'm doing fine now. So
Did you have any organization or advocate for you when you were going through this?
I did not, and that's one thing I want to touch on.
Yeah.
The agency in my county was in tight with this judge, and with some of the people that was causing my harassment, and they didn't even like reach out to me, none of that, because the person that was in charge, at the time, the attorney, the main one that would come for PFAs and different things, she and him were friends outside of the, you know, professional world. I guess her husband and different things. So I basically had that against me because all the friendships, of him. And, so
Yeah, yeah, and so he was really well tied in, and you had a lot of people that had a lot of opinions and so forth. And what it sounds like you do is you not only just help people expose their own victimization of this, but you also teach how to get your needs met and seek justice. And so for somebody who's going through something like this and might be in and what you were in was a really extreme situation because it's not like this is the general manager of a Honda dealership or something like that. This is the judge,
and
and
then
this is a whole
the other
system.
yeah, and the other thing, he always not the whole time in my career, but a lot of my career, he was my judge for my cases. And that was pretty I don't know, I mean, that's almost like a conflict, and that just wasn't right. I mean, he should not have been handling like the cases that the cases I supervised, he was the main judge on a lot of them. So, I had that going on, and I could never get rid of him. I could never get away from him. I mean, he was always had his hand in it. Like when I did reentry, I was the first officer to do the reentry program. And, it started off, I was with like, the criminal judges, and, he wasn't involved in that. But then all of a sudden he started wanting to incorporate parole plans for family court because he handled PFAs in family court. So he and another judge started implementing that. So then it got me back to being in contact with him again, on a professional level. So, I had to do some parole plans for family court, and and PFA court. And then, I eventually, at the end of my career, I was in family court. But after I filed my lawsuit, not right away, but eventually they removed him from my cases and put another judge on as the case was going on. But he was my judge up until I filed. And a little bit shortly after I filed, they kept him on my cases for a few months, and then they finally removed him from my cases. But it was just very difficult. It was very difficult because it's a very tight-knit community and a lot of nepotism, lots of nepotism in that building, lots, and a lot of wrongdoing that goes on in that building. At least it did back when I was still there. So, I mean, I saw a lot over the years.
What
A
are
lot of
the
corruption. The best word to say is a lot of corruption.
Well, it certainly sounds like it. And when you
Yeah,
say
oh, yeah.
that there was, maybe even a conflict. No, there's a clear conflict in
Mhm.
all of that. It's very exceedingly clear, almost just completely textbook
And
clarity.
I'm surprised, the Judicial Conduct Board didn't do anything about that conflict. That is something I'm very surprised about. They just acted like it was nothing.
That's
Yeah,
surprising.
yeah.
So, what is when people come forward and they say, "This is something that happened to me," are you seeing that their communities are more or less supportive of them these days? I know that if somebody came forward 20 years ago, it was a very different environment. What about when people come forward now? Do you see a lot of support or?
I see both. Like on social media, I see some support, but then you got the haters. You got the people saying, "Oh, they don't believe in it. They think, oh, they're just coming forward because they're after money or they're after this and that." It's just people that don't understand. They can't grasp it because they didn't live it. I had a lot of that too. I had a lot of negative comments on social media about me when I was going through it. And I also had positive, but it was people that didn't understand. The reason why people don't go forward is because they're afraid. They're fearing losing their job. They're fearing what people are going to say. They're fearing, are they going to believe me? That's why people don't go forward. That's why you see a lot of people coming out later because they're traumatized by it. They've been dealing with it all these years, just trying to survive. Like for me, I was just trying to survive and I was traumatized, but I just kept working through it and just tried to ignore it. But later in life, it started to affect me. It was affecting my health and my sleeping. I wasn't sleeping well. And the other reason why, it was hard for me to come out is I have two children. I was afraid, what's it going to do to them? That was another reason why I didn't want to come out and report him. It's,
Wow.
it's the whole big picture is why people fear going forward.
Well, and so you look at the thought distortions that there are in the abuse victim's mind. And so the abuse victim says, "I don't want to come forward because I don't want my children to have to go through this." When what the children would also be seeing is a parent standing up and saying being violated is not okay, and a victim has the right to stand up.
Right.
And that is one of the major things that I see in people who have been victimized, is that the shame lives so deep in their consciousness, and it affects the way that they think about, am I even worth coming forward? Is anybody going to believe me? What are people going to think of me? When they've been deeply harmed by these things, by people who 1000% know better than to have done the things that they have done. And so I'm I'm very glad that you came forward to do this, and I'm very glad that your children got to see an example of a person who's willing to stand up and say, "The shame isn't on me. The shame is on the person who would do this to a young professional who's trying to do the right thing and to make a career." And so you also have mentioned a couple of times that God is using you for this work. Can you talk about your spiritual walk?
Yeah, I just believe that God has led me through all this and like looking at the big picture, you know, it's upsetting what happened to me, but he has a plan for everybody. So I believe that now he's using me to help as many people and use what happened to me to try to help others. Like I just truly believe that. And I was raised a Lutheran. I went to church growing up and everything. And I believe in the Holy Spirit and God, and I really believe that he is working. It's like I feel it's my calling, so.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like there's probably been some times where you've had to be really close to the Spirit of God in order for
Mhm.
you to gain the strength to either walk through the next courtroom door or to file a motion or what have you. It's taken a tremendous amount of courage.
Mhm. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. Like, when I was still working there after I filed my case, I always had to take motions up. I had to walk, I had to take chances of passing this person in the hallway and even the other harassers, the other people that was harassing me that was below him. I had to encounter these people all the time, and it was very hard to do it, but I remained strong and I got through it. But, that part was very difficult.
Yeah, when you have disclosed more and more of this, because I've seen other interviews that you've done, it really what I'm kind of reading in you is it's still very painful to talk about these things.
Mhm.
Has
It's
there
very
been
difficult.
a sense of strength that you have gained from the ongoing exposure of this for the purpose of helping others?
Yes, I have gotten stronger, and it's getting easier for me to talk about it than it was before. Like, I'll just give you an example. The past couple years, I started podcasting like 3 years ago, and I was asked by several people to come on and do this, and I just kept saying no, 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 no,
Mm.
because I didn't want to talk about it because it's like you're reliving it all over again. But I did a show the other night, and I felt that I did fine with it, and I didn't seem to have a lot of effects from it. I mean, I still had a little bit, but not as what I would have had before. So I think it's good that I am talking about it because it's helping me as well. But you still live with the trauma no matter what. I mean, you still have it. I mean, you may have a dream about it, you may be still thinking about it or talking about, like, my husband is retired from there as well. And, you know, it gets brought up every now and then with him too. But he was very supportive. But I mean, it's just something that it's very hard to escape, especially living in this community. And there's a lot of stuff going on in the community right now, like on social media with some of the people in the court system, that it's just constant reminders. Because I have had an attorney, I had a couple attorneys on my case. The main attorney was Ed Olds, but then I had hired another law firm, a local law firm, for a short time, just so I had somebody local because he was in Pittsburgh. And she ran for judge during my case. Um, and they started attacking her, and they are still attacking her to this day. She's been running for election for several years since then. She's lost, but she's always been very close to winning. And she just continuously is trying to stand up and trying to do the right thing. And it's just, I'm just so relieved that I'm away from that building. I'm relieved I'm away from those people. I mean, it's like I feel so much. I mean, I still suffer from some of the trauma, but I feel that God saved me from getting me away from there,
Hmm.
because it just was very toxic.
Yeah, you've talked to a lot of sexual abuse victims. Can you talk about, and you talk about in yourself the PTSD and the anxiety and the dreams and everything like that. Can you talk about the long-term effects that people have experienced from this kind of abuse?
They have obviously suffered the dreams, like the nightmares and different things. Weight gain, that was something that I suffered from it. I never had trouble losing weight before, and then after going through this, it was very difficult for me to lose. The motivation, I used to exercise all the time, and it's more difficult for me to exercise like I used to. I used to be just self-motivated. And I've talked to other people and they're the same way, that they don't have the motivation like they had before. Um, it just affects your stomach. Like I have stomach issues now from it. I had gotten an ulcer from it, years ago. It gives you mental and physical effects on, so it affects your whole body, whole everything.
And when you see people begin to speak out and file suits or complaints or what have you, does it get better? Does it get worse? Is it how, what's
That's the worst. It's the worst. As soon as you file, and the first couple years, it's like you go into a bubble. You don't want to talk to anybody. You're afraid to go anywhere. I mean, I went through years of not even wanting to go out. Like basically I would go to work and come home. I did not want to be out any more than I had to be out. I just in the last couple years, I just started going out a little bit more, but I still don't go out much, but I'm I'm able to go out more than I used to be able to. But for years, I didn't even want to go. I didn't want to see anybody. If I would go out, I'd try to go to a different county. I didn't want to run into people. You have a fear of seeing people.
well, and conversely here, you have developed quite a platform
Mhm.
for speaking publicly. You do the podcasting and you help others be able to tell their story. And so there's definitely a bravery in you that is willing to speak out. It also sounds like the community that you live in is relatively small. People recognize each other, and it's somewhere where you obviously grew up. And it's still hard to be around that, even though you have a platform.
Right. Yeah. Well, what's really gotten me through it is my platform. I focus on people around the world. So I try to focus on people not in this community, but everyone else, like other states. That's why I go to I became friends with a lot of people in California and Washington, D.C. area and different people that don't live around here. And it's helped me greatly because I have been able to network with other people, and I don't have to worry about the people in my community. I'm basically trying to hit everyone in the world. So even other countries, I've connected with people in other countries too. So, that's what I'm trying to achieve, because this community, I just don't think that it's even worth it because of how there's just so much wrongdoing that goes on in my community. I don't even want to try. I'm trying to escape it. I don't want to be around it given what I went through. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I do. And I'm thinking about you because there's a lot of young people who are getting into the working world. And it's a very hard world to get into right now. It's hard to get a job, it's hard to keep a job. And companies and organizations are challenging these days. And so when you get a position, you really don't want to let go of it. And so you teach people the things to look out for in order to keep themselves safe. And so for somebody who's in a workplace or in an environment or a school or what have you, what are the signs? What are the things that you teach people to keep in mind when they're in their environment and around other people, that where to keep themselves safe?
I mean, just be cautious of wording, if you're around a coworker or a supervisor, the way they talk to you. Obviously if they're controlling, make sure that, that they're not showing favoritism towards someone else, or, everything's by the book. If you start seeing things being done that's not right, it might be a sign that you might want to get away from the situation, or, look for another job. Or another thing I tell people is journal. Always journal. Keep a journal, because for years I document. Anytime something would happen to me, I would document it and I would date it. Sometimes I'd put the time, and I kept that all those years. And it helped me with my lawsuit because I had proof in a handwritten journal that, I was able to say, oh yeah, on such and such date, this happened to me and this happened to me. And, I was able to share it to my attorney. So, you never know when you're going to need it. I mean, at times I remember thinking I'm just going to get rid of it. But then I'm so glad I didn't, because it helped me greatly. And I would save emails, I would save text messages. I documented all the time. And it was very important, even in my case notes. When stuff would happen in court, and if there was a situation in court, like maybe that happened with him that I didn't agree with or whatever, I always documented everything in there. There was a case with a guy that he had multiple DUIs, and he ended up releasing him early. And I documented that to the T, exactly the conversation that I had with him, everything. It was all documented in this. That guy should have never been left off supervision, but he ended up releasing them. And there was just a lot of different things, but I always covered myself in my case notes. I always documented everything because I wanted to make sure that, I did everything right and by the book.
When there is a person in power who is looking for somebody to groom, and they're kind of selecting, do you have, in the work that you've done, do they look for a certain kind of
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that, he would compliment me on my looks all the time. He was always
Okay.
saying, how pretty I looked, or, "Oh,
Uh-huh.
you got a nice outfit. I love your jewelry." Because that was another thing. He encouraged me to sign up and sell jewelry under his wife. The jewelry was called Sulpata. Oh yeah, that was another thing that went on. His wife was an attorney, and she also sold jewelry called Sulpata. And she always tried to get people to have parties in the building, and obviously they were making money from it. And he kept encouraging me to sign up under her to sell this jewelry. And obviously he was making money if I sold. So I did eventually sign up because I actually liked the jewelry. So I wanted to get it just so I could get a discount. You know what I mean? And I did have a couple parties. But yeah, I mean, that's the type of stuff that went on. And it was just, yeah, there was a lot of wrongdoing that went on.
So it
I
sounds,
remember some of the coworkers telling me they felt obligated to have a party just because of who her husband was.
of
Oh,
course,
yeah, they
a
felt
highly
pressure.
coercive environment, an environment where things that, I mean, I hear this and I go, what?
Mhm.
But there it was normed.
Yeah, it
It
was a
was,
norm, yeah. And
yeah.
then there was a lot. I'll tell you another thing. My memories are starting to come back from it. There was other things that went on in there, not per se to him, but just in general in the building, in my office that I was in previous. People would come in and they were always selling something on company time, always selling something. And, that's a conflict of interest, to be selling when you're working under the county. You shouldn't be doing that. Like my direct supervisor, she was selling different things. She sold these Bumble watches. She sold wine, and she did it on company time and got away with it all the time. And I always felt pressured to buy from her because she was my supervisor. She was also an attorney. So, I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on that wasn't right. I mean, if the public only knew everything that went on in there, they'd just be like, "Oh my gosh," and they were getting away with it. I mean, from the top down, people were all involved in this. I mean, it's just the way it was. It probably still goes on to this day. I mean, I always said to my husband when I go in there, I feel like I'm working, but I'm paying for stuff all the time. I'm buying something from somebody. I'm wasting my money. I feel pressured to buy.
Mm,
That
mhm.
was the type of environment I was in. So that was another reward of getting away from there because I wasn't spending as much at the time, buying unnecessary stuff that I would not normally buy.
Yeah. Yeah. This is what you're explaining, is an environment that where corruption is really the norm, where
Oh, it is.
things
Yes.
things things, nothing's by the book, everything's under the surface. And
Mhm.
so in an environment like that, I would imagine that if this thing is happening to you, you kind of go, well, where on earth am I supposed to go? Because everybody engages here. Even people who seem good engage in things that are not correct to do. And so if everybody is somehow engaged in some kind of activity that is discreet, shall we say, then you're in an environment that where do you actually go for somebody to stand up for you? Can you even count on the fact that your complaint is going to be handled in the legal fashion if you file a complaint in a system like this. And just in speaking with you here, I know at times in my life when I have felt very wronged by other people. And when I think of that, even when it's been years ago, I still get fired up about it because it's so deeply personal when you've been wronged in one way or another. And I can definitely see the deep hurt that this has created in you in an environment where I imagine that you felt incredibly helpless.
Yeah, it was. I mean, there was a situation that my husband and I was married before, and my second husband that I'm married to now, he was retired from there. And it was when he still worked there, but we were getting ready to go on our honeymoon. And the day before we left, he needed help with typing a pre-sentence investigation report. So usually the secretaries did it for him, but for some reason that day they weren't able to do it. So he had asked me to do it. So I came in early. I came in at 8 o'clock. Normally I'd be there at 8:30, but I came in at 8 o'clock and I typed it for that first half hour. I did not claim county time to type that pre-sentence. I just did it. Well, then later on in the day, both of us got called in and we both got written up for me writing that, like typing that pre-sentence for him. Meanwhile, I was just being a team player and doing it for him. I wasn't doing anything different than anybody else would have done. I've always helped other coworkers out as they've helped me out. It was no different. And, we were told that it was somebody higher that, my direct supervisor basically said that, this is coming from up above, that, I would never have written you up, but, I was told that we had to write you up. So, I mean, stuff like that. I mean, I was doing something good. I didn't even claim county time. I didn't get paid for that. I did it to try to get him done before we left, get the work done. We were all working as a team. I did it for other officers in the past. I didn't do anything different than I would do for somebody else. It didn't matter that he was my husband, but it was because I don't know. I mean, you understand what I'm getting at. Like
I
it just
do.
stuff like that that we dealt with. And then like he got a county car at times, okay, because he was a senior officer and he would be able to get a county car every day. Well, we rode together to work. So the one day we showed up at like I think it was like 8:25 or something. We were walking up the hill. Well, I came in like maybe 1 minute over and I got written up for being late. Meanwhile, when you get to the county car, you can get there at whatever time and you can arrive a little bit later because you're picking up the car on top of the hill and you're allowed to arrive up until like 8:45. And I got written up because I wasn't assigned the county car, but I rode down with him and it was never an issue before. But all of a sudden I got written up for that. I mean, this was back when he still worked there. I mean, he was retired by the time I filed my lawsuit. But I'm just giving you an example of just the childish stuff that went on and like
Retaliation.
oh yeah, it was just huge. I mean, there were so many things that went on in that building. It's just unbelievable.
So as you're speaking, and I'm thinking mainly about victims out there right now, people who this is happening to them right now. When you think back to when it started happening, when it was ongoing, and this question is not asked with any form of judgmentalism or anything like that. This is about victims. What do I do? What might you have done earlier or differently now that you have actually stood up for yourself and you're doing what you're doing? What do you recommend young people who are being victimized in this way do?
I would recommend to research your rights. Number one, go online and research it. File an EEOC complaint because I did not know about them. If I would have known about them sooner, I would have filed. So I would definitely look into filing EEOC. Go talk to an attorney. The first time you talk to an attorney, usually it's free. So go consult with an attorney, see what you have, if you have a case. And, the other thing is, I feel that I had to file a case because I had reported stuff in the past and it just fell on deaf ears, basically swept under the rug. A lot of they would sweep things under the rug in that building. But because I filed my case and I had 4 judges support me, That's how I was able to prevail. So, if you are in an environment that is it's similar to this, like, corruption, nepotism, you're probably going to have to get an attorney. You're probably going to have to file a case, if you do have enough stuff, because if it's people like this that sweeps it under the rug, you won't ever get justice. I mean, the only way you're going to get justice is if you file a lawsuit. That's what I truly believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're in an environment like this, there's not all bad people, but in my situation, it just seemed like that's just the norm. Just sweep it under the rug, cover
Yeah.
it up.
There is a physician that is in my profession who just recently was outed, and this is a thought leader, outed for having a sexual relationship with a patient who then ended up killing herself. And this is something that's really sent waves through my community, and it's caused a lot of these discussions about, well, what else could our profession have done? What more could there be more training and more this and that? And I'm just thinking, right is right and wrong is wrong. When you're doing wrong, how much training do you actually need to know not to abuse other people? And I look at a situation like this judge that you've dealt with. It is so clearly a breach of law and ethics here. What kinds of changes and reforms to our system would you think would be really helpful to help victims come forward and for people to understand the signs in a work environment of maltreatment in themselves or even in other people?
Well, I think that, the first thing that they need to do is remove the judges from the bench right away. I feel that, in my situation, they didn't do that. I mean, he ended up retiring eventually, but he got to remain on the bench for some time afterwards. And, I don't feel that justice was fully served in that regards. They had enough evidence that they could have removed him from the bench. There was court policies that were modified, fraudulently modified, and that in itself could have gotten him removed. And they didn't remove him at the time, but he did end up retiring, and he wasn't able to run again for election. But, that Judicial Conduct Board needs to be, I just think that they need to be more stricter. And I think that there needs to be new legislation passed, and, for situations like this, because it's still going on. I mean, he even had a son that during my case, his son got arrested for child pornography, I believe 39 counts, and he didn't do 1 day in jail. He's on Megan's Law, but he's just on supervision. He never did any time in jail. So, I mean, in my opinion, justice wasn't served there. But yeah, his son, and that was another thing, that after my case happened, then his son got arrested, for child pornography.
So what do you want for the future of Voice for Victims, and where is it that you want to take all of this, and what is your mission?
I want to continue spreading awareness. I'm hoping that, more people come out and, report victimization and report their stories, because, I think if we get more stories out there, then we're helping more people and trying to essentially prevent it from happening. Like, my goal is to hopefully try to create legislation, maybe get some new laws passed, and, try to prevent this from happening and try to reduce it, because if people start seeing that they're going to be punished for their behavior, maybe it won't happen as often. I mean, you're not going to be able to save the world. I mean, obviously nobody can save the world fully, but if I can save, a handful of people, then I feel like I'm doing my job.
Now you're operating in a subject matter that is it's dark, it's difficult, and it's exceedingly personal to you. And it's something that is, you know, it's just difficult in all way, and I'm certain triggering to you in many of the stories that you hear and everything like that. How do you keep yourself motivated and going in a direction where you're consistently able to do this very important work?
I just I have passion inside because of what happened to me. So like just an example with that probation officer that just filed a case. As soon as I saw it, guess what I did? I started sharing it on social media. I started spreading awareness about it because I wanted people to see here's another strong lady that stood up for something right. Here's another one coming out. Anytime I see any cases come out, I'm constantly sharing it on social media. I want people to be aware because I feel that that helps other victims out there, and it makes you stronger. And maybe that person, maybe just that will maybe make the person stand up. So that's one of the things that I do. And it's just motivating when if I see wrongdoing, I try to help in any way I can. I have people to this day still reaching out to me asking advice, and if I can give them advice, I will. If I don't know the answer, I always lead them to somebody that does know the answer. So I will help anyone. I don't charge them or anything. They just call me, and I will tell them if I can help them, I will. I mean, that's just how I am, and I feel like I'm doing a service to the community, given, what I went through, and I'm just trying to help as many people as I can.
So I wanted to talk about something that really has irked me in the past, because there's something that many people probably don't know about, and it's called qualified immunity. And there are people within the legal profession who have what's called qualified immunity. Police officers have qualified immunity, which means that many things that happen in the course of police work are things that the individual officer cannot be prosecuted for. And there's very specific things where a professional can lose their qualified immunity. Now, a judge has qualified immunity. And in this case, can you talk about what your lawsuit ended up doing and how qualified immunity is a part of that?
Yes. In this particular case, this judge thought he did have qualified immunity. He thought he couldn't be sued for any of the behavior that he conducted on me. And he appealed the case, and he ended up losing. The three circuit court judges ended up ruling in my favor, saying that he did not have qualified immunity. And I'll actually read what my attorney wrote for the press release. He said, Ms. Starnes' case reaffirmed the rights of any individual who is sexually victimized by an abusive public official to assert claims under the Equal Protection Clause. Judge Durr attempted to have these claims dismissed on the basis of qualified immunity. Both the district court and the Third Circuit rejected his arguments. In ruling on this issue, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed that government officials who engage in sexual harassment or who create a sexual hostile work environment are not entitled to qualified immunity. So that specific wording can be applied to any case out there that's similar to mine, and any attorney can use that for future case law. If they have a case that is similar to my case.
The one thing that blows my mind about that is that wasn't already the case.
Mm-hmm.
That seems so tremendously self-evident that if you are an official, anybody who assaults another person, you're not due legal protections that the average person wouldn't have. That's obscene. And so your case law is going to help other victims who are assaulted by public officials, particularly where they don't have this legal wall between them and the public official that creates all manner of complications for accountability in cases like this. And so I'm really, really glad that your case has established this case law to diminish the broad spectrum of qualified immunity for officials who misuse their official capacity with people who are subordinates or anybody else.
Right. Yeah, it was a victory in itself on that. I was very happy that it created case law to help others.
Yeah. Are you finding your podcast and your brand beginning to really start to move and getting more attention and more
Yes.
people coming to you?
Yes. Yes. I'm always having people interested in coming on my podcast. So yes, it's bringing a lot of attention.
So I know from having my own podcast and my own message that getting it out there can be a real challenge. And so for you, what are the things that you're really seeking to help you get a broader audience and to help you with bringing your message to more and more people? What are the kinds of things that would help you?
One thing that would help me is sponsorships. I would love to have sponsors, and I can advertise their business on my platform. Anyone out there that is supporting what I'm doing, that would be a great help to keep me going. Also, them subscribing to my channel. I have a YouTube channel. It's Crystal Starnes Show. If they would just hit the subscribe button and then like subscribe to all my podcasts, that would be a great help as well. And I also have a community awareness page on my website, crystalstarnes.com or voiceforvictimsradio.com. If they could just join that, because then they would have access to everything that I do on there, that would be a great help. But that is something that I am seeking is more sponsors. So because I want to keep doing this, but obviously, I have to pay for memberships and different things, and I'm basically doing this to try to help other people. But if I could get sponsors or donations, because I am trying to spread awareness and I'm trying to do charity work, I would love for that to happen.
There are people out there who are going to be listening to this, and they're going to be hearing you talk about your history and how this has affected you. And these people are going to be at the current space going through the hell that you went through. And I just wanted to hand the microphone over to you to speak directly to that person who's listening to this and talk to that person about where they are and what they should do.
Well, you only have one body, one mind, one soul, one vehicle that you have in this world. You want to make sure that you are giving it the proper nutrition, giving it the proper information, positive information into your body, because everything that goes into your mind affects your physical body. So, if you're going through a situation, you need to stand up, you need to face the fear. If you don't feel comfortable going to someone within your organization, go talk to a family member. If that's still not going to solve it, go talk to an attorney, because you only have one life to live. And if I would have stood up sooner, I probably wouldn't be suffering from the medical conditions that I have to this day. So that's why I'm encouraging anyone out there listening, you need to make sure you take care of yourself. Yourself is number one. You need to get healthy and focus on yourself. And by focusing on yourself and standing up, then you're going to be happier in the long run. So that would be the best advice that I could give.
Well, thank you for that. And I guess what I want to say about all of this is that this feels so much like a calling for you, something that is motivated by a severe trauma that occurred in your life, something that is motivated by wanting to help protect others. And it is a hard road. It is a difficult thing to talk about. I'm sure that it doesn't become any easier every time you talk about it, that there is pain every time that you do talk about it. And, as a licensed therapist, I can feel those things in you as you talk about it. But your intensive bravery, your strong mission-based and reasoned approach to this, and you living in a small community, very much like I do. I live in a very small mountain community in California, and what happens here, everybody knows about. And so I know that kind of dynamic, that fishbowl that happens, particularly in a small community. And your strength and willingness to go worldwide and to talk about these things, you are giving a priceless gift to other people who are going through what you went through. And on behalf of those people out there whose names you will never know, I just wanted to thank you for being that person who's brave enough to stand up to a major abuser, to stand up to a completely corrupt system, to press your lawsuit to the point where it changes case law, and for you to provide a platform for people to come and say to other victims, you are not alone, and you can be strong, you can step out of this, and there's life on the other side of this shame and these feelings of loneliness. And so your message is exceedingly powerful, and it's something that I think is going to be is going to last for a very, very long period of time. And I just wanted to thank you for being willing to share your incredible story here and to reach as many victims as you possibly can.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. I want to help as many, it's just, I look back at my life and, all the hell is probably the best word to say that I went through. And, I wish I would have got out sooner, but, everything happens for a reason. But I just feel that I don't want to see other people suffering like I did.
It's hard to know the right thing to do when you're in a very intense situation like that. It doesn't feel clear.
Right. It
Yeah.
does. Yeah.
Well, once again, a thank you. And I wanted to just talk to the audience as I close here a little bit and just say, please don't forget to like and subscribe to Mindful Mutiny. It really helps as we begin to grow this podcast and see where it's going to go. In a lifetime, there are more decisions than anybody can count. Living the highest form of yourself is the most rewarding thing you can do. Make incredible, positive, risky, and bold decisions to be the highest version of yourself. Now go be something great.